This book is a celebration of emotional weakness and lack of maturity. And I know that this is a harsh thing to say because this book is deeply loved by many people. But in all honesty, the fact that it is widely loved by so many people actually makes me deeply sad. This book isn't popular because it tells a healthy, hopeful love story. It's popular because so many people relate to it. And that's the most disheartening part. Because what most people are relating to is a sad, unhealthy, emotionally damaging relationship. One, sadly, a lot of young people think is normal. And I don't think stories like this should be glorified or be depicted as the norm. When society promotes fiction like this, it almost implies that it's okay to move through life hurting yourself and hurting others and calling it love. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand that life and love isn't perfect. I understand that relationships can be deeply complicated, but literature should challenge us to grow, to make better choices, not normalize emotional toxicity and call it depth. Okay, let's break it down. I'm actually going to read the summary of the back of the book to begin with, and we can go from there. Connell and Marianne grow up in the same small town in the west of Ireland, but the similarities end there. In school, Connell is popular and well liked, while Marianne is a loner. But when the two strike up a conversation, awkward but electrifying, something life-changing begins. Normal People is a story of mutual fascination, friendship, and love. It takes us from the first conversation to the years beyond in the company of two people who try to stay apart, but they can't. When it states in the company of two people who try to stay apart but find they can't, this description is kind of misleading. The way that that is framed is that it implies a long, complicated journey to something meaningful. Like, yes, they struggle, but they work it all out because they love themselves and they love each other. Spoiler alert, they don't. And not only do they not work it all out, it deeply damages them into their early adulthood. What we actually get is years of emotional confusion, avoidance, and pain. Textbook toxic behavior repeated over and over and over again. Number one, this book promotes hiding your relationship and hiding who you like, hiding who you love, and hiding who you're sleeping with from your friends, family, and the world. Connell and Marianne keep each other a secret, not just from strangers, but from the ones closest to them. If you're embarrassed to be seen with someone, let alone be intimate with someone, if you can't be honest with who you're hanging around or who you're sleeping with, how is that healthy? Why are you sleeping with them? That's not complicated. That's not romantic. That's just unhealthy. Secondly, throughout the entire book, up until the end, they're just simply too emotionally weak to be with each other. And I would go as far and say, be with anyone else. There's a continuous theme of anxiety, shame, insecurity, fear of judgment throughout the entire book. They sadly continuously choose silence over honesty. They can't say how they feel. They can't admit out loud what they want. And sadly, they can't admit who they love. Instead of growth and learning how to navigate out of this toxic mindset or out of this toxic cycle, we just see continuous repetition back into this cycle throughout the whole book. The same mistakes, the same misunderstandings over and over and over again. Number 3, there's a normalization of overlapping of sexual relationships. Connell sleeps and gets with other women while remaining emotionally connected to Marianne. So he's just dragging other people into this mess. Yes, technically they're not always official. Yes, there are certainly blurred lines throughout the story, but the emotional overlap with different people is consistent and is just painful. This is depicted in the book as deep and complex, where in reality, this is emotionally messy, weak, toxic, and just damaging for all parties involved. Number 4, the book actually does depict accurately the aftermath of low self-worth. And it might just be the most honest part of the book, but equally also so soul-destroying and so sad. Marianne grows up in an abusive household. Her brother is physically violent. Her mother is emotionally neglectful and dismissive. And later on, we see Marianne just enter into relationships later on in her life where she just accepts abuse and degrading sexual dynamics, mistaking harm for intimacy. While this portrayal is realistic, there is very little in the book challenging this. The cycle doesn't get broken, it just continues. And finally, most terrifyingly, the cycle just continues. It continues with Marianne and it continues with Connell. Connell lies, withholds, and totally avoids any and every difficult conversation. He even misleads Marianne about his scholarship. And that's the problem. Avoidance, silence, fear, emotional insecurity. Nothing's resolved, nothing is healed. It's not even the scholarship itself that is the issue. It's what it represents to him, which he can't overcome. Connell comes from a working class background, whereas Marianne comes from a wealthy background. The scholarship highlights that difference. To Connell, it feels like proof and highlights his insecurity that he truly doesn't belong at Trinity. He's only there because he got financial help. He internalizes this as inferiority and embarrassment, even though a scholarship is actually a sign of academic merit, whether you come from a poor socio-economic background or a wealthy socio-economic background. He doesn't tell Marianne about the scholarship. He allows Marianne to believe that he is struggling alone financially. And as a result, he's just continuously contributing to his anxiety and his depression. Like, I have no words apart from yuck. This book just promotes emotional weakness. It romanticizes running away. It romanticizes self-inflicted pain. And that makes me really sad because so many of us are already confused about love. So many of us are already so vulnerable around this topic and about boundaries and self-worth. Life is hard enough and love can also be hard, but it doesn't have to be. And while I do understand why this story does resonate and is loved by so many people, I don't think that is enough reason to celebrate and promote such unhealthy, toxic relationships. I think we can do better. We can read stories that promote growth. We can read stories that show people choosing honesty, even though it might be the difficult choice in that moment. We can read stories that show love being depicted in a way that can actually be healing, not something that slowly breaks you, which is how love is depicted in normal people. And that's why Normal People didn't move me. It disappointed me.